A very good evening, everyone. So, in the previous class, we were saying about the promises. So, we already saw this example. Here, what we were doing actually, the main theme, what I want to explain here is that we were actually putting this promise inside a variable, okay, which was this fried rice promise. And then we were consuming this promise, which was actually a variable, right, with the help of then and catch. Today, what we are going to see is we can see that function returning promise. Now, what I mean here is earlier we were using variable to store promise, right? Here we are taking help of a function. Okay. And how function is basically doing? Function is basically returning a promise. So let's see the situation again. So here we were having one variable which was basically an array, and it was having five of these values. Now we created a promise, the promise creation and again the same. We will have to use new keyword, then promise class, and inside it there will be a major callback. You can see it starts from here and basically ends here. So here inside it has two parameters. One is resolve and reject. You have to, again I'm reminding, you have to always consider resolve as the first parameter. Now, here I have some condition. So my condition is that it should have, this bucket should have vegetables, salt and rice. Then only it can just resolve something. So we all know resolve means basically giving some output. Here I am giving output in the form of this object. Otherwise, if any of them is missing, then we have to simply reject it and the message will be could not do it. Okay, this is simple and we already saw how it is doing basically in the previous class. Now, how you can consume this? Here, what is the difference between earlier example and this one? The difference is here, this as a promise is being returned. Earlier, what was happening? This as a promise was directly assigned to a variable, but this time we have a function already. Now, what to do? The consumption is again same. How to use a promise is again same. Earlier, what we were doing, we were using that variable name and then we were writing dot then and dot catch. Here, what we have to do, we have to basically call this function. Okay, just remember, don't forget to add these curly braces, means these parentheses. Why? Because these indicate that we are actually calling this function. So when we call, then only this promise will be returned, and then only we can actually consume this promise. So once we call this function, then we can similarly use then and catch variable. So here we were passing a object in resolve. So here we collected it with the help of this variable, which is my fried rice. And here we can do anything what we want to do. So here I'm just consoling it. Similarly for the catch, you can just put means take this string as an error here, and then you can just simply console or do whatever you want. Okay. Now, moving ahead, we have another thing. Means this is just to tell you that sometimes, means most of the time, there are some chances that you need to do such things like this. So, you can even means we have seen how to use promises and set timeouts, right? In earlier class. What was the case there? We saw how callback queue and microtask queue work individually. But here, let's see how we can actually use means just return promise, and also we can use set timeout inside the promise. Inside the promise, this time we are doing. So basically, what I want to do here is I want to reject or resolve the promise after certain time period. For example, here after 2 seconds only, I want to return this promise. Here, see, we created one function which is my promise. We are returning a promise. So we have to create the promise. The promise creation is again simple. New keyword, promise class, then callback inside it. First parameter will be resolved. Second will be reject. Here we have some code. Let's see what the code is. Here we are taking one variable which is value, which is equals to true. What I am telling you is how to read the code. Okay. Then we have one set timeout. Okay, now in the set timeout, what we are doing, if value is true, here it is written if value means it should be true, it should not be a falsy value. If this value is true, as in case here, then it should resolve. And also note that we are putting this resolved empty. Earlier, till now, whenever we were resolving something, we were actually passing something. But it is not necessary you need to pass something. You can simply resolve it. That okay, it has been resolved. Now you can proceed ahead. How you can proceed ahead? By consuming this promise with the help of the then keyword. Okay. Similarly, if this condition fails, if this value is a false value, then it should reject. Okay. And here again, note that we have not passed anything inside the reject also. Okay. And since we are using set timeout, so what is the syntax of set timeout? We use one callback callback function, and then we use comma, and the second parameter is the time period. So here it is 2 seconds basically. Okay, 2000 milliseconds. Now, how to consume this promise? So we will use my promise dot then, and inside it there will be a callback function. And see, since we didn't pass anything in the resolve, while resolving we passed nothing. Similarly, while collecting it from means while using then also we won't use anything, but inside it we can do anything we want. So here what we are doing, we don't want to pass anything, we just want to console that it is resolved. Similarly, for the catch, the condition is the same. We were not passing anything earlier, so here also we are not collecting anything, but we are simply doing the code whatever we want to do, and the what we are doing here is we are simply consoling rejected. Okay, I hope this is means clear. So what we did here is, now what will happen actually to the promise, how it will work. See, we created this promise, right? But only after 2 seconds its value will be determined. When JavaScript will check this, it will come to this line. Okay, when this my promise is called, it will come to this definition, right? Here also whenever it is returning, at that time it will create this value, but and it will create the set timeout also, but it will send the set timeout to browser as discussed earlier, and only after 2 seconds it will be means a possible to execute. Okay, so after 2 seconds this promise can be executed, and this is what we wanted, because we wanted to resolve or reject a promise after 2 seconds. I hope this is clear. Now, there are two important points which you need to remember, and this is something which is a fact. Okay, so you have to take it as it is. Now, till just try to see this line. Okay, promise dot resolve 5. Here, what we are doing, we are using this promise, and then in the resolve, we are passing one value. Okay, so whenever we pass a value, in the dot then, okay, when this dot then is used, then whatever is the value here, this value and this 5, these are same. This is nothing new. Okay, I'm just repeating it so that it is more means clear to you, and you can just every time you can swallow this fact. See, while doing resolve, whatever we are passing, that is basically collected in the parameter of the callback. In the earlier class also, I told you means explicitly that whatever is the parameter of this callback of then means then's parameter, then's callback parameter is basically the value which is passed during resolve, right? So here also what I'm trying to say is, see here, while resolving we pass the value 5. Now when we are consuming the promise by using dot then, at that time in the parameter of the callback, here the parentheses are means not there. Why? Because the value is only 1. So I already told you, then in ES6 you can just ignore these parentheses if there is only one parameter, right? So here there's this value, so this value and this 5 both are equal. This is one fact you need to remember. So basically what is happening in the background, how it is processing, this resolve is basically returning a promise. Okay, and then it can be used. Okay, going ahead, one there is another concept which is of this then. Okay, how this then is basically working, it has one main point which I was referring, that it always returns a promise. It always, not in one case or anything, it always returns a promise. Who? This then. Till now, what we have seen, the application of then, we were just saying that then receives something, it receives something, and then do something with that received thing. Okay. We didn't saw that it is returning something also inside, means in the code. whenever this then is having already a callback, right? So in the callback, what all things are happening? We have never seen that it is returning something. So the thing to be remembered is, if it is returning something, then it is basically returning a promise. Now, since it is returning a promise, it returns a promise, it is possible to create promise chaining. Okay. Also, sometimes, like in other all means older cases, we saw that here, do you see anything was returned? No. Another example was here. Here, did you see anything is returning? No, we are not saying. So, if we don't return explicitly, JavaScript itself return internally. Okay, internally it returns undefined. If you want to check it, you can just try to console it. Okay, and check the value. It will be always undefined if it is not being returned. Now, to see the important means concept of promise training, what you need to remember is we have this the means then, right? In then it always returns a promise. Okay, just take this thing means this line, just take it as it is. Whatever this line is saying, that or it always returns a promise. Okay, and then believe me, this promise training will be a lot simpler for you. Now let's go for promise chaining, and then these older means concept what I just said you, that will make sense. For now, okay, just remember it always makes returns a promise. Who? This then. Okay, and also this resolve, it returns a promise. Okay, and how it is returning this promise? With the help of this value. This value is basically a promise. Okay, let's see in detail now. We have a function. Okay, what is the name of the function? The name of the function is this my promise. Okay, it is just returning a very simple promise. And what is inside the promise? How we are creating the promise? Basically, we are again using new keyword, then promise. And basically, mostly in most of the examples, whenever there is a function and if there is a promise also, then we return this promise. So here new promise, and then again a callback. First parameter will be resolve, second will be reject. Here inside we are without any condition, we are just resolving it with a string foo. Okay, now what will this foo do? How to use this foo? Basically, you know already, like, right? We need to consume this promise to utilize this foo. If you want to use this foo, you need to consume this promise. How to consume this promise? Since it is a function, we will call this function. Okay, and then this promise will be returned. How to consume a promise? Using dot then and dot catch. So here I've used dot then. Okay, just try to go with the flow. Okay, and everything will be good, and be patient for this example. Now, here you see there is one what we say callback function is starting. In this, the parameter is value. Can you tell me what this value is basically having? It is having this foo only, right? Because we already know anything which is passed in the resolve is consumed, is taken, is collected by the parameter of the callback of the then keyword, right? So here value is basically this foo string. Now, what we are doing, let's check if I'm saying correct that really this value is foo. So just console. If you don't know, no, not getting anything, just debug it. What I mean by debugging is in the very basic thing, what you can do in debugging is just console the value. Okay, so here you are consoling this value. This value is basically foo, right? As I said that this value is foo. Okay, going ahead, what I'm trying to do is this value plus equals to, these are, this is basically a assignment operator, right? We have already learned about it. Now you can guess, right? Why were we means learning about these operators? Because they can be used in complex problem. Now here if you see, then this variable, string, data types, operators, return keyword, functions, everything is making sense, everything is being used. Okay, so that's why the basic things are very important to be uh, properly practiced. Now, value plus equals to bar. What it is? What does this line mean? It means that new value is equals to value plus bar. What is the value of value? So here, what it is saying is, let me bring it to very basic. It is saying that value equals to value plus this string bar. Okay, can you tell me what is the value of value here? The value here is foo, right? So when two strings are concatenated like this, they become one. So now we are this value will have the value, the string foo bar. Okay. Now what we are basically returning? We are returning here this value. So what is the value returned? What is the new value? Earlier here this value was foo, but now we change this foo value by assigning it to something else. So what this value become? It becomes foo bar. So now we are returning foo bar. Okay, we are returning this value, and the value of this value is foo bar. If you see, we are simply returning a value, and then you can think that you can just console this value. But wait, what I just said here, then always returns a promise. Here also it is returning a promise. How it is returning? Whatever it is returning, that is basically a promise. So here this value is a promise. Okay, how you can use this value? By again consuming the promise. Who is the promise? This then is basically giving us a promise this time. Okay, let me just simplify it. Okay, see, we returned one value. Now I am saying that this value is basically a promise. Who is giving the promise? This dot then is giving the promise. So now if I have to use, then I will again apply for on whom we consume the promise. We consume the promise for something name, right? It can be name of the variable, or it can be the promise itself, or it can be a function. So here this entire then is the promise. Okay, this is the thing which is returning a promise, which is giving us a promise. So we need to consume with the help of this. So now again on this I can use dot then. Okay, here only I can use dot then, and then again I can use one callback function. Okay, like this. And here if I say x, then what this x will represent? This x will represent this value, because this value is being passed here. If you can just let me just make you very simple, very simplify. See, here I have written, means what I have written here, that return value. So you have a issue, means you are getting confused. If I would have written promise dot resolve, and in here if I pass value, if I write this thing here, okay, will there be a issue to you? Tell me. If I write like this, will there be a issue to you? No, your issue will be solved, because now you know that a promise is means there is a resolve thing, and now we can use a promise on this. So just think that we don't have to means every time write this promise dot resolve value. We don't need to resolve. It is already known that a then keyword will always return a promise. So what we can do now here is, this entire thing is returning a promise. This value basically is a promise, so we can consume this promise. How? We can use dot then. Inside it we can again I'm taking this value as this value here. This value and this value are same now. Okay, you already know, right? So whatever is being resolved, that is being collected in the parameter of the callback of the then. Again the same thing. So now here what I'm doing, I'm consoling the value. What is the value now? It was this value. What is this value? It was foo bar. So again we've got foo bar here. Okay, now again what I'm doing, value plus equals to store, means this foo bar string plus store. So as a whole what it becomes, foo bar store. Okay, and note here that there is a means space here. Okay, earlier there was no space. So here when this string becomes, what it becomes, basically it becomes uh, foo bar. And basically here we add this string. What is the string? Space plus store, right? This is what it is becoming. So now if I remove this, it is space. So by default here space comes. You could be means you must be confused that earlier why we just combined it foo bar, because there was no space here. So just means it is simply a string case how we are basically consoling it. Okay. Now here this value becomes foo bar is true. Clear? Now again what this value is, something is returned in the then. Whatever is being returned in the then, that is a promise. So this value is a promise. Now we have to use it, we have to consume it. How we will consume? We will again consume it with the help of then. So now I have used dot then. Again I have taken this it in the form of value. Okay. And here what I have done, I have simply consoled value. Okay. Note that here nothing is being returned. So, do you think that no promise is being returned? But I said that always a promise is returned. So see, you know that nothing is being returned. How do you know? Because you have not written any code which is returning something. But JavaScript is not a fool. JavaScript knows this line only because it is a small baby, as I always say. It has to remember the rules. Its rule is always return something. So if user is not returning something, user, who is the user? We are the user. If I am not returning something, JavaScript will return. And here, just make me clear it. Here what happens, since I am not returning something, so JavaScript will come and it will just write this line. It will write return undefined. Simply it will write this line here. Okay. Who is writing this line? JavaScript. Though we have not written, but something will be returned. Okay. If we are not returning anything, undefined will be returned. So this was the whole concept. What we learned here, we learned that then always returns a promise. And also what we basically did here, we used one dot then another dot then another dot then. What it becomes? We have actually used a lot of promises. This was the first promise, right? This entire thing. This was the first promise. Then this was the first, second promise consumption. This was the third promise consumption. So this is called as promise chaining. Okay, I hope the concept is clear. Now, what we saw earlier. We yesterday in the previous class we saw that we were tired of this pyramid of doom. We were tired of callback hell, right? Here a lot of callback inside callback means a lot of nested callbacks were there. And I hope you remember this code because it was not easy to be forgotten, right? It has disturbed us a lot. It was taking four parameters, then two callbacks, and then based on some condition, if that condition passed, then on success callback was called. Otherwise, on another condition, this on failure callback was called, right? This was the case here. This was how we actually called each of them for the 10 headings. Now, as I promised that I will convert this pyramid of doom into a flat code. Okay, let's see how we can do. I have to use something which is promise. And that's why basically to convert this into flat code, to make the nested callbacks, to make such simple code very simple. Okay, though this code is simple, right? But how we are executing, how we have to use these timeouts or callbacks again and again, that is basically confusing us, right? It is making this simple concept very complex. So now to simplify all of these questions, we have promises. And basically what we will use is promise chaining. So now comes to the code. We were having 10 headings, right? I have not written all the headings here because they were the like same. So we here what I'm doing, I'm just taking the each element. Here heading 1 equals to document dot query selector dot heading 1. And similarly for heading 10, we have taken the element, selected the element basically with the help of DOM manipulation. Now, I have one function. This function, if you see, change text, it is like before only. It was taking four parameters, six parameters here, four were the normal parameters. Similarly, here it is having four normal parameters: element, text, color, and time. Okay, this time what we are doing, earlier what we were doing, we were having some condition, okay, and what we did, we were directly calling those function. Here I have created one promise. Okay, so return new promise, resolve and reject. Now Inside it, what I wanted set timeout, right? So here I have used set timeout. In the set timeout, what I need to do, if element, then element dot text content is equals to text, element dot style dot color equals to color. Basically what I am doing is I am just creating one set timeout. This is what we were doing previously also. See, here we were having values, and inside it we were actually having this set timeout. See here, this set timeout earlier also we were having, and I had explained this code in detail. So this time I'm not going again in detail, I'm just converting into a promise. So what I have done, the code is again same. Okay, here what in place of this resolve, what was the thing, if something case, then we were calling this on success callback. We were calling a callback. Okay, callback inside a callback. But this time what I have done, see, the outer call set timeout is again same. Okay, and if element is present, then its text and color should be assigned. Okay, and in this set timeout we are giving this time. But here at this place, what we were doing, we were calling another set timeout, right? But this time, in place of calling another set timeout, what I have said, that resolve, and I have kept it empty. What I am trying to say by this is that if this condition is means if element is present, just assign this text and this color to this, and then resolve. Resolve means I'm not saying here exactly what you need to do. You can consume this as a promise and then later do whatever you want to do. Okay, for me just bear the lines I'm saying, and then it will make sense. Okay, if this element is not present, we are just rejecting. And what is the reject situation? Element not found. Here in place of means directly writing element not found, you can even make it customized by using this element parameter. Okay, this time I'm just keeping it simple, that every time we are giving the same message, that element not found. Now this set timeout closed, this promise closed, this function closed. Is it clear? Again, I am repeating what I have done. I have a function. I have taken four parameters. Okay. In those parameters, what I have element, text, color, and time. Inside it, I have created a promise. Okay. Why I have created a promise? Because whatever inside process I want to do, that will be executed after some time based on some conditions. Okay, here we were given some time. Okay, after this particular time, this thing should happen. Remember the case. What was the case? You means basic case. Let me just tell you quickly. See, this was the case, that first heading should be converted to this color and this text af- after 1 second, right? So after this time, basically second things means this should happen, and after 2 seconds of first heading changed, after 2 seconds, after means first heading got changed, then after 2 seconds this should happen, then after 2 seconds this should happen. So this was the case, that something should happen afterwards, means based on some conditions. So that's why we are basically using promise here. And then here, as usual, we were using set timeout, then if element is present, do this. But to call second method, to call second some case here, this is, just think about, this is about heading 1. Now if I want to worry about heading 2, what should happen to heading 2? I should return right here only set timeout, like we were doing earlier. But this time what I'm saying is just resolve. Keep it resolve simple, that do something here. After this point, do something. And if it fails, reject it. Okay. This is simple. Now, how to consume it? I am calling this function by using change text. Heading 1 I have passed as element, 1 I have passed as text, right? And once 1 second. So basically this is for, means I'm calling this function for heading 1, right? Now here, since I have used a promise, I have to consume it. So what I'm doing is dot then. Now here this argue parameter is empty. Why? Because here we didn't pass anything while resolving. So here what I said, return, means wait, just don't go for return here. Just think that means after this resolve, here in place of resolve we want to do something, right? So what we wanted to change text to heading to 2 and purple and 1 second. See again here, this is the same kind of thing, right? We called one function, then based on afterwards we called another means another same kind of function. So here also we are doing the same thing. We means basically what we have done, we have just simply customized it with the help of function promise, sorry. So here we called one function for heading 1, then we utilized this promise, and then we called another function. Now after this heading 2, I have to call for heading 3 also, right? So this should also return promise. Basically, what is this telling us? It is basically giving some resolve already, and it is returning a promise. See here, when this change text will be called, it will return a new promise, right? So here also we have just write means dot there that itself, and then again we can do dot then for the heading 3, and similarly we can do for dot then dot means sorry for the heading 10. And finally, if it is getting rejected, then we can use this catch dot catch, and then we can just write error. If your reject is customized, then you can write after each, then you can use dot catch also. But here I have just kept one simple catch. Now if you notice what I have done, I have used basically, see, first time I call this function for heading 1. So change text for heading 1 and everything we passed, all the four parameters. Then this heading 1, if you this change text, if you remember, it returns a promise. If it is returning a promise, we need to consume it. So when I'm consuming it, it was empty earlier, so this time also it is empty. Now what I am doing here, I am again calling the same function for second heading. Now this is also returning a promise. Here I have not used the return keyword explicitly because this change key text is already returning something. So now when it returned a promise. So again what I can use, I can use dot then. So here I can call it for the heading 3, just keep make it heading 3. Then here you can do for the heading 4. I've just copy pasted it, so that means what I wanted to tell is you can do for all the headings, and then you can reach till heading 10 and then do it. Okay, so see, this is what we were trying to do earlier also. Call one function for heading 1, then call another function for heading 2. But it was so complex, it was callback hell. But this time it is simply a flat code. It is so easy to understand. Even if you have not written this code, you don't know anything abcd about this code, what you can do is you can easily see what is happening. There must be a function which must be having four parameters. It would have been returning a promise, and then here we are consuming that promise. Okay, inside it we are again returning this, we are again using the same function, and again now it is returning a promise. So that's why we have used dot then again, and so on we can use. Okay, so this is basically the case what is going to happen here. Now what I wanted to tell you is over. What I wanted to tell you that I will convert this pyramid of doom into a flat code, and this is how we have done. So what you need to remember, what are the key points are basically how to use these promises. Okay, how to use this resolve, reject. Just get familiar with these terms. Okay, next things from tomorrow we will start Ajax. Okay, so till now this is it. Bye bye.